I would at the playground in primary school, I would I would go through just multiplying things by two, like just like doubling. I'd just see how far I could double things,
Right.
or like I'd do times tables and like power tables, like instead of playing
Oh my
with kids.
God.
I can't think of any more human activity than conducting science experiments.
The game I play is a very interesting one. It's imagination in a tight straitjacket.
The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together.
What I always think should be the basis of education is not answers but questions. We should teach kids how to question.
Nothing. No one wants to do the research I'm doing. So
Why?
if people did, then that's good. Like I'd love it if people think, oh, that's a good idea, I'll steal that.
Yeah.
Then good on them. I'll still do the PhD.
Nice.
And maybe have more people to collaborate with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good attitude to have towards it then.
Oh, it's easy. There's no money in it. So.
Man, there's no money in science. At all.
Not science and music. Anyway,
Yeah,
this stage.
exactly right. Yeah, I have like 2 nieces and 2 nephews. My little niece, I'm getting her like science books. You know the Osborne science books. They're
I
like
don't know them.
you open them up, like they have like flaps that you can open.
Oh,
They have,
cool.
like the human body.
Oh,
they
I
have
missed
books.
out. That sounds awesome.
Dude,
yeah.
that's the shit, right?
Yeah.
But part of me, like, I want her to get interested in this, but part of me recognizes that, like, a life in science is like a beggar's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to, like, ask for grants, try to get money.
Yeah. Well, when I was, because I did a double degree science and music, and most people did like a fun one and then like a serious one. So people were like, "Oh, so are you doing a science degree so you can get a job?" And I was like, "No." They're like, "Then how are you gonna get a job?" Like, "Oh, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm just doing degrees for fun."
Dude, tell me about it. I had a guest on a few episodes back, John. He did a double degree. This is in America, right?
Yeah.
Their system's a little fucked up, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because if you claim bankruptcy, they'll forgive all your debts except your student loans. So
Yeah.
that's how screwed it is. So he did a degree in German and a degree in music. So he finished with a double degree and couldn't find a job
Yeah.
because it was around 2008.
Yeah.
So that's when the financial crisis happened. And he was like, man, what the fuck do I do?
Yeah.
You know? He
Yeah.
joined the army.
Well, yeah. There you go. That's a fallback. I mean, and it's good. It's good that it's there.
Yeah.
Like people, like it gives a lot of people purpose. Like they don't know what to do. They need something to live by. Some people come out of high school even and just like got no idea what to do. Like, or join the army, and it should. Yeah, it's a good thing to have because then it really does give you structure and something to work for. Then you can move out of that if you need to.
Yeah.
Or stay if you like it. Yeah.
I think, yeah, definitely. I mean, especially when you're coming out of high school, I almost feel like you should do like a 2-year mandatory, like you should serve for the army, even if you don't have to go overseas.
I mean, they do that in other countries, and I don't know. I wouldn't agree, but I'll let you finish.
Yeah, I know. There's definitely caveats in there, but I feel like it can give especially young men a lot of like discipline and focus, which is something that we lack a lot. I think also is when you go through the army, and I have a friend and John as well who I interviewed. There's a lot of difficult shit that you have to do.
Yeah.
You know, and you just learn to do it. you don't complain. You can't because you got a drill sergeant yelling at you. You know what I mean? And you have to push yourself.
Yeah.
And you push yourself beyond what you thought was capable. And I think that those sort of qualities are important, especially when you get humbled. I think we don't get humbled enough, man. Over here we have like keyboard warriors on the internet.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You know, I think it's just people who haven't been tested, haven't been humbled enough.
Yeah.
And they don't have enough self-discipline and focus on improving their life, so they start doing like shitty things. If we put every kid that came out of high school in the 2-year mandatory training boot camp, I know that's scary, but still, man, I think we'd have a different society, to be honest.
I'd agree with that. We'd have a different society.
But
No, I follow that. I mean, yeah, like I didn't do 2 years. I went on a 4-week boot camp. They tried to, and they really beat you down, not literally or physically anymore. No, they don't do that. They, into nothing, and then they build you back up as a soldier. That's kind of like what it's meant to be. But I resisted, because I was just doing it because I had to. Made sure I didn't lose my humanity, because people do, they lose themselves. They become, that's the point. And that's kind of like, I'm like, I don't know if everyone needs this. Like, and then, I didn't change, going through the process. Maybe other people did. It's probably good for some people. And people I know who've done the mandatory training in other countries, all it's done for them is just wasted 2 to 3 years of their lives where they could have been studying, they could have been getting ahead, and that's a big distraction. Like, if you're building momentum through high school, so if you're lost, I like that you can do it, but I don't know if I would agree that like
you should.
Everyone should. But then I get what you're saying. Like it does build a lot of skills. Like I did learn a lot just from the 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Have you watched that? There's a show, I think it was on Netflix. It's called 2 Weeks of Hell.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. No.
Oh, bro, it is the most intense shit. I think it's like special ops in America. So about, 100, 200 people apply, or 400 people apply, on some large number of people.
Yeah.
And they put them through, like, it is an incredible, it is the most difficult shit. I felt like throwing up just watching what they were doing. They were like doing a series of exercises. There was one where they had to carry like a log, and they had to go left, right on their shoulder, and do that for hours. And then they had to roll and do like all these crazy moves, and obviously if fatigue kicks in, your body gives up, people get injured, and you feel like I've pushed myself to the point where I just feel like throwing up.
Yeah.
And dude, it's fun. The euphoria that you get after like the post-vomit euphoria it's totally worth it, guys. But it's just crazy because I saw, like, they had this rule that if you throw up in the pit, you can't leave it there. So you have to pick it up and put it in your pocket and keep going. Yeah. Or you have to throw out outside and come back.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, these guys have to go to, it's just the most grueling shit.
Well, they get worse than that, like, with the SAS, like Special Air Something Services in Australia. They're intense. Like, they do, like lack of sleep, lack of food training. So they get like maybe 1 hour's sleep a day, or no sleep. I think it's no sleep for a week, and they get like 1 like tin per day to eat or something like that. And they're doing that sort of shit. And it's just like, I look at that and I'm like, it's because they're gonna go into the SAS. Like they need to be able to deal with just the most horrible shit ever. But just like, that's just, and I remember one guy, because this is one of the things like I learned from the training. Like you hear from people who've done the real stuff, and then one guy, he was like the padre, and he was an ex-SAS soldier, and he was saying someone else ate his can of food one day.
Right. What happened?
He was gonna kill him.
Oh my god.
Like, he wasn't, but like, can you imagine that? Like you've had no sleep for like 5 days, and you're just starving all the time, and you're overworked, and you find out that some dickhead ate your can of food for the day.
Fuck. Dude,
so
I don't know what I'll do.
He had to get held back by like everyone.
Oh shit. God damn it. Man, yeah, that would suck. But as you said, they have to go through those. It's like if you don't, you have to filter out people who aren't going to be able to survive in extreme conditions.
Yeah, because that's the job.
That's the job.
which is crazy. Yeah.
Fuck, man. That's definitely not made. I'm not made for that. Give me books, man. I'll know that out.
Actually, yeah, job, career in science much easier than that.
Yeah, much easier. Dude. Way easier. Shit.
Very different.
So, let's talk about, like you said, you did music and a science degree.
Yeah.
What type of science degree?
I did majors in physics and applied maths.
Oh, shit.
So not what I'm doing now, but what I was interested in. I was interested in how everything worked and just maths in general. Like I like maths. Physics for me was like explaining how the world works. Obviously other sciences do as well. I was always interested in other sciences, but that's what I wanted to do. And then I love music. So I just studied what I liked best through university instead of like what would give me a job or something.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I was always fascinated with physics, but maths wasn't a strong suit.
Yeah.
So, but I geek out on like physics documentaries. I'm reading a book. Have you read The Greatest Story Ever Told by Lawrence Krauss?
No, I haven't read that one.
Oh, dude, it is the shit.
Okay.
It's so good. But yeah, I always lacked the maths, and I think that kind of stopped me from getting into physics. But you did.
It's very maths.
Yeah,
heavy,
it's very maths heavy, man. You gotta like, because the language of the universe is maths.
Yeah.
You know? So if you're gonna describe nature, the most precise and accurate way you can do it is through mathematics. It's not through words.
Yeah. And in my physics degree, we would use maths that we would learn the following year or semester in my applied maths major. It's like you just use it in physics. And then like, what is this math? And then you learn it later in maths if you're doing maths. So like,
oh, that's cool. So, in high school, did you do? Obviously, you must have done physics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I did. Yeah, physics, maths. I did the old course. Well, not old, but like the courses now. I did the ones before that. So
how
I didn't do like maths 2A to whatever. Like calculus and the other thing. I don't know. Basically, it's like it's cool, like 2 maths, 2 science.
Yeah.
It's like physics, chemistry, maths, and hard maths. And then I did English literature and music. Okay. Because I was arty or whatever as well.
No, that's cool. You have a nice balance between art and science.
That's the idea.
Yeah. So how did you finish your bachelor's in science/music?
Yeah.
How did you decide to do what you wanted to do? Like, did you have a direction already? Did you have a goal in mind?
Kind of. I had a goal. Like my research I'm doing now, I kind of started that during high school as like a hobby, kind of like just self-interest. Like, because I would, look up maths things before that. And I do maths outside of school. Because I was that sort of guy.
Dude, no one talks like this, man.
I would at the playground in primary school. I would I would go through like just multiplying things by 2, like just like doubling. I'd just see how far I could double things, or like I'd do times tables and like power tables, like instead of playing with kids. So I always liked maths. And what are we talking about again? I'm just getting memories of my days.
Dude, I love it. It seems like you're just a nerd.
I was just a nerd. I want to answer the question though.
Oh, you started you had this interest, this hobby ever since high school.
All right, yeah, my research now. Yeah, how did I get from there? Yeah, do I have a goal? Okay, yeah. So, and then I kind of learned that like you can, and then I fell in love with music. After science, actually. And then that just got in the way. I couldn't do anything else. But then I found out that you can describe music using maths. And I was like, oh, this is the shit. Like, it's like, because I hear it and I play, I love music, but then I can like nerd out on the maths of it.
Right.
And so like in year 9, like we got taught about like the harmonic series in our music class. And I was like, oh, that's numbers. Like this is awesome. I didn't know that. And so from then I just read all the Wikipedia articles and then I discovered all of this speculative music theory, mathematical music theory, and microtonal music and that sort of weird stuff, like weird music theory stuff within the next year. And then I've just started working at that throughout, just distracting me from my actual studies. And then getting to the end of my bachelor's, I was like, I need to just study this. Like, I can't do anything else.
Right.
Like, I'm hardly getting through all my units. Like, I'm not doing that well in my physics and maths majors anymore because I want to do it, but I'm just spending all of my time doing this thing. And once I'd finished my music degree, I still hadn't finished my science and maths degrees, and I wasn't getting enough practice done. And then I thought, you know what, I don't want to do a recital because I won't do that well. I'm going to write an honours dissertation, which not many people did. People did a recital and then wrote a little bit, but there was an option to do musicology instead of music. And I was like, no, I'm going to write about this stuff that I've been thinking about for the last, by that stage, 8 years.
Right.
8 years? Yeah, 8 years.
Right.
And then that led to the PhD ultimately.
Right. Before we get into that, so you mentioned how math is intertwined with music. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, love to. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, firstly, like maths, you described before, maths is the language of the universe. Like, maths, itself isn't a science, but it's what we can use to, at the core level, describe how everything works. So that applies to music. Music, like the stuff I'm studying, it's kind of like maths that I can hear. So like, I play with the numbers and then I directly like hear the result, which is awesome. So the way that works, I mean, any musical instrument or any musical sound you're hearing, it's an object that's vibrating at a particular frequency, and then you get the rarefactions and the other things. It's been a while since I've done physics. I know what they're called, but I forgot. In the the airwaves, and then your inner ear kind of picks that up, and then it resolves the different frequencies, and then your brain interprets it. And so that's all numbers. And then like one thing I'm really interested in is in like if you're playing an instrument, you do scales practice and you learn your theory, but that's all maths as well. Like chords are maths. Like chords are different frequency ratios that have a special relationship to each other, and it's all related to the harmonic series, which is like, and when an object vibrates at its like fundamental frequency, then half of the object also vibrates, and then a third of the object also vibrates, and you get a note that's a certain interval above that and a certain interval above that. You make that to build chords. You make scales that get those chords, and then eventually, some other maths happens and you get led to like the keyboard. And then I'd look at the keyboard and be like, why are there 12 notes? Why are 7 of them white? Why are 5 of them black? Everyone else kind of just accepted that was what music was. But that's defined by a particular optimization of mathematical and physical sort of things optimized by mathematical processes.
Right. Can you just explain what a harmonic series is? Because for the people who don't have like a music background, it can be a little tricky.
Yeah, I'll go over that again. So so physically, object vibrates. The whole object vibrates. Right. Half the object vibrates. A third, a quarter.
So if you give like an example of it on the keyboard or even a guitar string.
Yeah. So a guitar string's probably a good one. So the whole string. Yeah. So you pluck a guitar string. That's probably like the lowest string on the guitar, and you pluck it. And then if you put your finger halfway, then you stop the whole string vibrating, and then you make the half string vibrate, which was going to happen anyway. If you touch it lightly, that's when you're playing harmonics on a guitar.
Okay.
And if you go like do do, it doubles the frequency.
Okay.
You hear that as kind of the same note because it's a really simple ratio. So that's the first harmonic. And then after that, if you lightly touch the string 1/3 of the way, then you're stopping it because it's an antinode in the whole string, as in the whole string is moving at that bit. You're stopping it from moving by putting your finger there. You're stopping half of it moving by putting your finger at this bit that isn't like the end of it, but you're at an antinode for 1/3 because it's like it stops vibrating there, and you get like the do 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 do, and then you go up this thing that's called the harmonic series, basically because it's like a whole number of multiples of the ratio something's vibrating, which are directly related to fractions of the length of the object or the length of the string that's vibrating.
So these notes, so you have a fundamental note, but that fundamental note has all the other notes of the harmonic into it, right?
So yeah, you're asking all the right questions because you know when I'm skipping things. That's good. So all of these notes are in, like, they all happen. Like, the object vibrates, half the object vibrates, but you can isolate them by, like I said, by kind of stopping things. But yeah, like, so the sound of an instrument is, you can have two instruments playing the same note, but they sound different because you have different amplitudes of those different harmonics in the sound. So, like, every object, like, parts of it also vibrate when the whole thing does. At different like amplitudes depending on what the object is, And
so when you play guitar and you ring a string, there's certain parts of that harmonic are more accentuated. They are more obvious than other parts. And if you go like halfway on the string and you pluck it there lightly, then that note specifically shines more than the others.
Well, yeah, you effectively mute the
rest.
other ones from happening because you're literally stopping the string, because if you touch the string, you stop it from vibrating at that point.
Right.
But you're not pressing it down so that you're making, like, you're changing the length of the string.
Right.
But yeah, so it's basically that. But then you can do a similar thing like with your voice. Like everyone sounds different. They have their own voices because of the way their vocal tract is shaped.
Right.
And then the way we speak with different vowels is that we move our vocal tract and whatever, so we resonate at these different harmonics that are based off of our fundamental tone.
Okay.
Otherwise, everyone would just sound like a robot, and everyone would sound the same, and you wouldn't be able to speak.
Yeah.
It's like you change the thing that it's vibrating in so that you resonate different like harmonics of the actual sound. So I've confused that a little bit, unfortunately. Sorry, because I've added in the object that's vibrating in and resonance. Your vocal cords do the same thing every time. So it's like if you put a guitar in a different room, it's going to sound different as well.
Okay, so it's like that. Yeah, with the voice, I remember working with Dr. Chris Carignan. I think that's how you pronounce his last name.
That is. Most people get it wrong, but that's correct.
I've never heard his last name pronounced.
Oh,
dude.
See, all it takes is to read it. Like, he was complaining about this. He was like, it's not hard. It's, you just Carignan. Yeah. You just read it. But people call like Carrigan or Canigan or like, because they just don't actually like read all the letters. Like,
dude, everybody messes up my name, man. Like my name is Hamid, right? But I get called Hamid, like, right?
Hamid.
Hamid. I've been called Hamid. Like, come on, man. How hard is it?
Yeah, Australians are really bad at pronouncing.
That's all right. It's
names from other.
It's not even. It's like 2 syllables, Hamid, right? But nonetheless,
mid.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
Gareth got it.
I get it.
Yeah, he gets it. But with him, he was. We learned that like you have, the fundamental frequency which is produced by your voice box, right? And then you manipulate your vocal tract to change the form and frequencies.
Yeah.
So which parts? So you have the fundamental frequency which has all these other harmonics or formants or other frequencies that are in it, but the manipulation of your vocal tract and how you resonate your voice is what makes different parts come out. And so different vowels would have different formant frequencies that are associated with it. It's just like different, like each person has their fingerprint. A vowel would also have its own formant fingerprints, which would indicate that it's this vowel.
Yeah. And so then to connect it, if I can, to what I was trying to say, then even every speaker, they can be using the same formants, the same frequency, but they still sound different.
Why?
And that's because of their vocal tracts aren't exactly the same. So there are 5 formants, 5 formant groups. Mm-hmm. 2 of them are the vowels, and the other ones are like just noise. They're just part of the timbre of your voice, and it depends on just what shape you are.
Right.
And it's just going to sound different because of different resonances that aren't necessarily those 2 main formants, and the size of your vocal cords themselves as well.
That's interesting. So the first 2 formants are typically used to identify vowels, right? And the F3 to F5, so formant 3 to 5, is just the timbre. So just like a guitar versus a piano would have different timbre, so different quality to the sound. Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. It's probably not entirely correct. And my knowledge on that topic doesn't go much further than that. Just that there are other formants, and a formant is just a particular kind of peak at which things can resonate. But there's resonance throughout. There's one of the upper formants is called the singer's formant. So if you're a trained singer, then as well as the different vowels, then you just get this high pitched sort of sound that contributes to like the richness of your voice, and that's how opera singers can be heard over orchestras, because like the orchestra doesn't play in that frequency range of that singer's formant.
Right.
So like, yeah, if you, I don't want to. I'm not that good a singer.
Can you give us an example? Like, give us Like, what would it sound like? Just mindful of.
Okay, I'll try. Like, cut it
Yeah.
out if I can't do it, because I'm actually somewhat untrained as a singer. But I mean, I'll go through the other formants as well.
Yeah.
So like, if you're, so the lowest formant is, I think of it as like just like how wide open your mouth is. So if I just go, whoa, whoa, you can kind of hear, maybe it's pretty light, but that's the lowest formant, which I'm kind of trying to do like harmonic singing, like isolated, and then so that brings like the oo and e, your mouth's closed, so they're lowest on that formant, and then the r is the highest one. And so that's formant 1. The second formant, I think of it as like going from like an oo to an e. It's like how far your tongue is forward is maybe one way you control it. So like ooh. So you might be able to hear the as well as just some other noise. And then this high-pitched kind of thing is that singer's formant.
So before you get to that, so the first one you demonstrated, you essentially controlled how much space was in your mouth, right? So
Yeah.
you're opening it
Yeah.
up. In the second one, you're moving your tongue back and forth to influence that
Yeah.
movement, right? So this one's up and down movement. This one's
Yeah, and you
forward,
can
back.
draw that on like a 2-dimensional kind of map as well. Like basically the vowel chart. If you look up like the vowel chart, then that's kind of how it's drawn. And they draw at the like up vertical direction. It's at the top is the low first formant, and then so it's like an oo going to an r, and then left to right it goes, as you go to the right it goes from they've done it in reverse. It goes from a high second formant to a low second formant as you go left to right, and as you go up and down. So it is, you can think of it as like a 2-dimensional kind of surface.
Okay.
In that way, which is kind of interesting. Mathematics of sound there again, of course.
So what was next?
Right, so then I've never tried to demonstrate the singer's formant before, but if I try to sing badly, which I used to be really good at, like if I just go, I'm kind of just the fundamental. You can just hear, but you can't hear anything else. But if I'll try to do this properly. There's like not a good demonstration, but there's a lot of other more high pitched frequencies in that. There's the vowel, the formants in the vowel, and then there's just this like high stuff. But if you listen to any sort of opera singer, then you can hear that much better than myself, because I'm not very trained. Yeah. It's a ringing, yeah.
So what are you doing different? What are you doing different?
So what I'm trying to do different, and I'm just learning this at the moment, is trying to basically getting rid of any tension in any part of your neck or your tongue or your voice, because if you tense your muscles, then they become a hard surface and it deadens the possible resonances. I think.
Okay.
Or they get in the way. The other thing is that they literally change. They're stuck like in the way of allowing the vocal tract to resonate.
Right.
At the singer's formant. So I'm still kind of figuring all that out, and that's not my topic. But I do also sing. So that's and then so that's something I'm always working on.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But I have musical friends, and whenever I have friends who can obviously sing, but I'm always just like, I don't know. When I see them, I'm like, you guys are magicians, because I have the same vocal track, similar vocal track, but you can do some magic with yours, So
yeah, I mean it's I mean everyone can. Everyone has the ability to learn.
Yeah.
But it's just training, and it's not just training. It's like having something you want to do with your voice, having a sound that you want to get, and then practicing until you can kind of achieve that. So it's practice, but it's I watched a presentation a few weeks ago, like talking about musical prodigy or musical skill, basically skill development. There's talking about prodigies, how like it's not just 10,000 hours practice according to this theory. They say 10,000 hours practice and then you'll be an expert. But like if you just repeat the same mistakes for 10,000 hours, you're not going to get any better.
That's right.
So if you want to, you know, if people who have an aptitude in music, they hear a sound or they think of a sound and they want to make that sound, and that guides the practice. That's where the passion goes to behind wanting to do that. So everyone has the ability, but not everyone has the drive to waste so many hours with no prospects of money necessarily, you know, to do that because they just want to make that sound.
That's fascinating.
So do have fun doing it, but like, you know, don't, I was going to say don't waste your time, but no, but music is beneficial to everyone, and everyone should aim for, if they like to, then be involved as much as you can. A lot of research showing it's just good in general.
Yeah, for sure, man. One of the reasons why I got into playing a guitar was that in my first year in the MRes, I found out, actually did a cognitive science as an... So my background is biochemistry and molecular biology. I'm a weirdo. I like weird shit, different shit, and I thought cognitive science is going to be fascinating. And I did a research project with... I had to do a wiki encyclopedia entry, Stanford Encyclopedia entry or something. And my topic was music and abating cognitive decline. So was that Jenny taking that? I have no idea.
Oh, because anyway, there's a lot of good research in that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And I remember reading it. I'm like, oh shit, this is like linked to a lot of cool shit. Like there's obviously it can lower your chances of developing neurodegenerative disorders, also hearing loss. But it's just neuroplasticity and keeping your brain plastic and malleable. And I thought, well, of course I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's just good. Yeah.
Like that's very, and I think as a person, it's very important to be well-rounded and to learn as many different things, which means that you're pushing your brain to be flexible in all sorts of areas, which I think in the long run is really good for creativity.
Definitely. And the benefits go further than that as well. There's also mental health and social benefits of music involvement, as well as the cognitive benefits. It can, you know, it gives you a community of people who are, you know, also interested in music, and then through saying I'm going to learn this instrument and then learning it, then, you know, you've set out this goal, you've achieved this goal. Of course you can do that elsewhere, but you know, I like to say that the possible benefits of music involvement are kind of unlimited. Like it really can encapsulate any sort of improvement, any sort of benefit.
Yeah, for sure, I believe it. So tell me what you did in your honors.
So my honors was in, a method for the composition in microtonal music or something like that. Basically, I talked about how this particular mathematical optimization of like natural frequency things. That was so badly cool. Quote that. Yeah.
That's gonna be the opening for this episode.
Yeah. That's the label for the episode. Gareth talks about the
natural
frequency things.
That's it.
So yes, we talked about like the harmonic series, objects vibrating naturally. These ratios your ear is used to kind of hearing because that's how objects work, and it's pleasant as well. It's easier to grok. Like if it's exact ratios, you know what's going on. And you get this pleasance, and so you want music to sound pleasant some of the time. So you want these things to be available. So there's a particular optimization of that which leads to the tuning system that we have, which is what everyone takes for granted. It's where all the frets are on your guitar. There's 12 of them to an octave, which is a da-da, which sounds like the same note. And they're equally spaced in terms of linear pitch. I won't go into that much detail with like how that works or why, because that can take ages to, and I love to talk about it. But anyway, so that's not the only option. That's not the only way to optimize it. That's not the only things to optimize.
So it's not that you mean the ratios.
So you can use different parts of the harmonic series. You can forget about the harmonic series as well, which I don't like to do that. So that's not what my research was in. But you can look at the harmonic series and you can look somewhere else, and you can say, instead of this being really important, the 3-to-2 ratio being super important, that's not as important. But I also want to look at the 7-to-4 ratio or the 11 to whatever, 11 to 4, 11 to 8 ratio, basically the 11th harmonic, the 7th harmonic, as well as the 3rd and the 5th, and then you don't get the same system. You don't get 12 notes in an octave. You don't get a scale with 7 notes necessarily. And that's just one thing to do. So I was interested in music that sounded different, and I'm always interested in a different sound, in different harmony. Like that was what my interest in it as a musician. And then mathematically, you can get to that through different optimizations of different parts of the harmonic series. So my honors project was, and that's called microtonal music, by the way. If it's got notes that are basically between the cracks of the piano, because I did something different, I got led to a different set of notes, a different scale, a different tuning system, it's called. Then
before you go on,
yeah.
so like, I think Arabic music has different notes, right? So it may even be between the white and black notes that we have on the piano. So we don't have access to those notes with the instruments that we might have here.
No, and that's a huge thing. I mean, we know about the West sort of, trying to take over the world. that old chestnut. So Arabic, the Eastern countries had this rich, musical history, as did a lot of other countries that were at one stage. The West came to and said, "We are superior. Do things our way." And actually, the music of the East leads back to the ancient Greek philosophers more closely than does the music of the West these days.
How so?
Well, so the ancient Greek philosophers, we talk about Pythagoras. He's the guy with the Pythagorean sort of thing with maths that I've also forgotten the name of.
The triangle thing.
The triangle thing. I was going to say the triangle thing, but it didn't sound any better than Pythagorean, formula or whatever, theory. I did a maths degree a few years back. So Pythagoras also kind of realized that if you vibrate, an object at like 1/3, then it sounds an octave and a perfect fifth above the pitch. He kind of figured out that start of the relationship between the string divisions and the harmonic series. Oh. And the story was he was like hitting anvils or whatever at different pitches. Our anvil's like just a big piece of metal.
Okay.
They use it in like metal making in medieval times or something. I don't know. But they still use them in modern music today. You can hit anvils and they just make a ding sound. It's just a big piece of metal that goes ding when you hit it. So he was hitting big pieces of metal. It was like, why are they different frequencies? That's the story. But I don't know if that story is true. But so then he was like the perfect fifth, this ratio of 3/2, the da-da, it's just the most perfect thing ever. And then he had like a cult following.
Really?
Called the Pythagoreans.
No.
Yeah. Not just for that, but like as a philosopher, he basically had a cult following.
This guy's living life.
Oh yeah. I mean, and there were obviously people against it, obviously as well. And then
did he end up banging everyone's wives?
I don't know.
Because that's what usually happens in cults.
Is it?
Yeah, dude.
Oh.
Some dude. Do you know David Koresh?
No.
Waco. You heard of Waco?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, drinking the Kool-Aid. That's what he did, man.
Oh yeah.
It always starts off with this guy claiming to be Jesus.
Yeah.
And then everybody gets convinced, and then he slowly introduces laws where, okay, now I can sleep with everyone's wives, right? And then, now it's kids, and then boom, they get killed at the end.
Okay, yeah, that's.
So
I wonder if that happened with the Pythagoreans.
Yeah, look, I bet he was banging everyone's wives, man.
Pythagoras, what a oh god. Anyway, so then there are other, and they had like lyres, which is like little mini harps, and they played this scale, and they had this thing called a tetrachord, and you have like a perfect fourth, which is da da, which is a ratio of 4/3. They put notes in between, so like da 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 da, or like da na 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 or da da na. I'm just gonna pick some random divisions there. Actually, I'll stop. Then he picked other medieval philosophers picked ratios from elsewhere in the harmonic series to put in there. These are these other possible notes that the Pythagoreans didn't do because they weren't like based on fifths. This isn't 100% true for anyone who knows this topic. I'm making things a little more simple than they are. And then those other philosophers with these other intervals that were not like the Pythagorean thing, you can trace that into like to the chromatic scale on the piano. A little more complicated, but there's a connection there. The other ones don't fit on the piano, and then there are some Eastern philosophers after the ancient Greek philosophers who came up with these other sort of intervals and everything as well. And then that eventually led to Eastern music. And then the West comes to the East and they're like, we're superior, here's our music. And the East is like, oh, they must be superior. I'm not a historian. They must be superior. So like, we need to play your music because it's got like harmony, which is actually a particularly Western thing, harmonic tonality, which is what my PhD's on. But anyway, and then they were like, okay, well, I suppose let's get your system. And then if we like cut all the intervals in half, then we can kind of approximate our notes as well. And so that's like the quarter tone system.
Oh.
And so like the West thought of the quarter tone system as well, but it was I think it was originally developed in the East, and I think that was in the late 19th century, whereas the West weren't really using it until, the sort of modernist period in the early 20th century. I think apparently from like a book that I read.
Right. So there's the quarter tone system.
Yeah.
So that has 24 notes.
Yeah. So it's just you divide every semitone in half, and you have a quarter tone for and actually King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Have you heard of them? They're a Melbourne-based like prog rock band, I think. And they did a whole microtonal album recently that like people like buying into, like it's doing really well, and people are like, oh, this is cool because it's just kind of different. I love that. And they use like quarter tones because it's like, and they use some kind of like Eastern flavored kind of scales. But so that's one way to do sort of microtonal music. You just cut everything else in half and then you have 24. But I think that's so boring.
Why?
I mean, for me, it's not a particularly good optimization of other things that I want. Like it doesn't improve any of the tuning deficiencies in the scale that we have. And it adds maybe one interval, but I see that as kind of a more historical and simple, like practically simple solution, but it's not an elegant sort of mathematical optimization, and it's not weird enough for me,
Right.
And I've digressed from the original question again.
I forget what the original question was, but I think we were talking about your honors, about optimization.
Right, so my honors topic, see, you do remember, this is good. Yeah. My honors
I've been doing
topic...
this for a while, Gareth, yeah.
Yeah, I bet. And academics probably, go on and on about everything, and you have to sort of keep us on track. I'm not an academic, I'm just a PhD student.
Oh, you could be.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah.
So my honors topic, I'm looking at these other optimizations. I'm basically like, okay, so the major third, the ratio of 5-4, da da, in that's a little flat. On the piano, I started to notice it's like really sharp. It's like it's out of tune. Like we kind of get used to it, but it's just out of tune. And I sing like a cappella music, like unaccompanied barbershop harmony, and that's a lot of that. Like you don't have instruments, and you will tune things, and we do that in orchestras as well. If you're playing, like I play in the wind section in orchestra, we'd make sure our major thirds were in tune. We'd flatten them because on the piano they're just so dang sharp. So I'd just go sing or play in the orchestra, and I'd come back and I'd try to play piano, and I'd be like, I can't do it, it's too sharp. Like there has to be a better solution. And of course that's what people were saying as soon as equal temperament became a thing. Hundreds of years ago, there were people saying it's the major third's too sharp. There's all these other solutions. So.
But too sharp, you mean it's just higher in frequency?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Yes, it's higher in frequency than it should be. So yeah, so sharp means in music is when the frequency is a little higher. Yeah. Flat is when the frequency is a little lower. And those words, it describes the feeling that you kind of get from it. Like if something's a little high, it's like sharp, and then flat. I know they're words like that in music. Kind of metaphorical kind of descriptors. Really interesting. But thanks for that.
So why is it always sharp?
Why is it always sharp? Because of the particular optimization. It's so on the piano, like every semitone is like the same size, and every interval is the same size.
What interval?
Every interval. So every two semitones is the same. Obviously because it's just built on. It's one dimensional. You just have semitones. So the major third is 4 semitones. It's 1/3 of an octave, because every semitone is a 12th of an octave, and you just have this linear system, but then frequency is exponential to the power 2 of pitch. So you have an approximation of these ratios from the harmonic series, and it happens that if you divide an octave into 12 notes, then 7 of them, which is a frequency of 2 to the power of 7, to the power of 7 on 12 for maths people, that's like really, really close. It's a super good approximation to 3 halves. Like it's really in tune. And that was Pythagoras' perfect fifth.
You just lost me in the last bit. 3 halves? What do you mean 3 halves?
So like in terms of frequency ratio. So like you go to the third harmonic and then you divide, then you take it up an octave, or like it's like the one note is 3 halves the frequency of another note. Okay. That's how you get this perfect fifth that Pythagoras raved about.
Okay.
And that's super important. So this system we have is a really good approximation of that, and an okay approximation it kind of happened to be
of the other 5 notes
of of the next harmonic, the important one, this major third interval, which is a ratio of 5/4 approximately, which sounds, and it's the next thing that sounds pleasant to our ears.
Right.
After that, they become more complicated.
Okay. So the system that we have now is optimized for a good number, but then it's approximating others. And
yeah,
you mentioned before the third. Forgive me. What was it?
I should be more clear. The major third.
The major third is slightly sharp because of this approximation.
Yeah, because it's not. I've skipped a bit. Like historically, that's not exactly how it developed. But basically, it's not seen as important in what they're trying to optimize. This interval of a ratio of 3:2. They want to make a linear scale such that is really well approximated.
Yep.
And then this major third thing, this other important thing, ratio of 5:4. They also want that to be kind of well approximated, but it's not as important. So that's the system that we have.
I see. Okay, I think I kind of got you now.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so the system we have optimizes, approximates certain things really well, other things that are deemed as not as important, not so well.
Yeah. So in my honors, I was like, let's care a little less about that first one and care more about these other ones.
Okay.
And then I just picked a system that's different. I chose 22 steps to an octave rather than 12, a little more complicated. And then I was like, okay, now that I have that, how can I make like Bach style, like just not just Bach style, like Western style, what's called harmonic tonal music, or basically music with chord progressions and like a home key. Like all pop music today, basically, and all classical music, it follows this sort of this particular method, this which makes it really like Western music. I'm like, how can you do that, but with a different set of notes? So I picked these 22 notes, and then I wrote about what scales you can use, and what chords you can use, and what chord progressions you can use, which are basically the building blocks of music as we know it in the West. And it's not that I'm not interested in music from other cultures. Obviously that's really important in getting to these other notes, but I really like harmony basically. So I was saying how can I get harmony using these other notes, and that's what I wrote about.
And so these other notes, so what you're optimizing is that second bit and trying to better approximate that and still be able to create the music that we create in the West using the optimization.
Yeah, so there's that, and then I also get approximation of the next 2 up as well. So there's, in terms of the harmonics that add complexity to the system, or like the next things, there's the octave, which is already there, the perfect fifth, the major third, that's where Western music stops. Perfect fifth, really well approximated, major third, not so well. So then my system was like, well, I mean, I didn't come up with 22 equal divisions of the octave, but my system was, the fifth is still important, but not as much. That second one, the major third, we want that to be more in tune. But then also we want approximations of the next one up, the 7, because 6 is just twice 3, so we already have that. And then 11 is the next prime number above that. So I also get approximations of those. So I see it as like way more possibilities. It really opens up possible sound world. You can write consonant or pleasant sounding music that's just so different to what we have today. And there's way more possibilities for scales, and and these other things that are important in music, because there's more notes. It's more complicated, but there's more possibility in it, and that's what I wrote about.
Right. So do you have any of this music that you've made?
Yeah, I've got a SoundCloud. And
Could we
it's
possibly
a
play
plug.
it?
Oh, you want to play it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
sure.
don't have to do it now. I mean, like, but in the post edit, we'd like to.
Yeah.
Add
Let's play it now. Yeah, no. I've got a SoundCloud page where I have just a few of my experiments. I've written a lot more about it than I have written music in it. I do like to write music, and it's important to do that. But I haven't had as much time for that. But I do have, some examples of experiments I've done on my SoundCloud page. Some, unfortunately, are not recorded, some songs that I've written. And then along with those examples of SoundCloud, I have like a huge page of theoretical sort of description on there as well.
Okay, nice. Yeah, what type of instrument do you use to actually...
Yeah, now that's a really important thing, because instruments are all built to the tuning system that we have. Well, not all, I mean, all Western instruments, apart from, like the voice is one thing, so I do sing. But then it's hard to sing these intervals between the cracks, because...
Right, it's hard to distinguish.
Yeah, and you've got and you haven't practiced singing those, and you've got you don't, like other instruments, you press a button and the right sound comes out. Pianos is actually pretty easy, because you can just retune them with software.
Yeah.
Not acoustic pianos, but electric pianos. So that's a lot of the stuff I do is me playing on a keyboard. I've also built some whistles, like tin whistles, like little Irish flute type things. And I built those to play in these different scales. So one or two of the recordings I'm playing, a few of the recordings I'm playing these whistles. And a lot of stuff is just computer generated, like I'm not even playing it.
Right.
Actually, I did one piece where I got people to sing. So I had a quartet singing totally microtonally, but the people I got to sing were also microtonal composers, musicians. So that was an opportunity that I had, because we had a little meet-up, basically a camp where we wrote music for each other and
that's really
and
cool.
Performed it. And guitars you can refret. Trombone, anything with a slide you can kind of do it. But in any case, there is a barrier, but it's possible.
Right. So how did this... We have like 10 minutes and we got to get through your PhD, right?
Oh, shit.
Shit, indeed. Okay. Maybe, 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Tell us about your PhD.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of leading there. So my honors, I wrote about how you could write this music, and then I wrote a piece and I demonstrated it, and then people were like, but does that work? That just sounds like normal music to me, but weird at bits. How do you know it's going to work? And then through my honors, they were like, oh, you should maybe do an experiment. And I was like, an experiment? That's like psychology. I don't know that. I can't do that. No, I'm just doing music theory. I don't know about this psychology thing. And so I just kind of left it. But then at the end of my honors, I was like, but we don't know if this works. Like, I had to say it. I was like, so further research would require like testing, playing people microtonal music and seeing how they respond. So I knew that had to be done, but I didn't have the expertise to do it. And then my supervisor, Dr. Andrew Milne, he was also a microtonal musician. He was on this forum, this Facebook group, and he was like, hey, I'm looking for a PhD student to do microtonal music cognition. And I was like, that's what I need to do. I don't know how to do it, but you know how to do it, I assume.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, I could do that. And then not many other people were interested in it. So I applied, and I was just finishing my honors, and then I applied and I got the position here at the Marx Institute.
Nice.
And then, so now I'm basically, I'm testing how people respond to microtonal music. And the main question I'm trying to ask is like, can you communicate emotional meaning in microtonal music? Because in music you can communicate emotional meaning, can make people can feel sad, they can feel happy through building of like tension and resolution is kind of how you do it. Is that based entirely on expectation? Do you have to have heard those notes before to get a feeling of tension and resolution? These are the questions I'm trying to ask with my PhD project. So I'm going from the ground up, and I'm doing experiments using these other scales that I talked about already, and then finding out which which notes, which intervals, which chords, whatever, are more tense and more resolved. And then from there, I'm going to build some music that follows these contours of tension and resolution. And then I'm going to test whether people can get whether people feel or whether they get it, whether it works, whether you can actually still write music that you can communicate through in notes people haven't heard before. And I think that'd be huge if that works, because it means you can totally open up the possibilities for like writing music.
Right.
So yeah, that's my PhD project.
Okay, that's a really nice summary.
That's probably the best one I've done. I think it helped. We had this like hour so I could like warm up to it. Yeah.
Just to set up. So you're testing whether people can. So when you say tension and resolution, what do you mean by tension?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I talked about those like nice sounding intervals, that's kind of like resolution, because your inner ear is like, oh, I get it. That's easy. It's not, your brain's not working. And then if you have this big like clash, like all this noise, then you're like, oh, what is that? And then if you move from, this is exaggerating, if you move from like noise to this nice pleasant sound, then it's like, oh, what's going on? Oh, that's nice. And so you get this response, and that's building tension and then resolving.
So let me see if I understand. So like Alex was showing me, that if you hit a C and a C sharp on the same octave, like they don't fit together.
No,
So that would be considered tension with
That's right.
And
fit is another word I do use as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And if they're on different octaves, then they feel more like you can play them together.
Yeah, it's still like, they don't still sound great, but yeah, you spread it out, then it sounds better. And the closeness of notes is one, really simple sort of measure of dissonance, which leads to tension. So when they're really close, it's really dissonant. These notes are C and a C sharp. These notes are semitone apart. If you put them further apart, it's less dissonance. It's less tense.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good.
Yeah. I learned some cool music shit today.
Yeah, I think I'm glad at least I was clear with my PhD topic, because bloody hell, the rest of what I've been saying.
I think we needed to go through like just the foundation and get all that until we got to your PhD and understood what you're saying. But that's really cool, man. I appreciate you having giving us your time and being on the podcast.
No, it's been fun. Yeah, and the podcast is a great cause. Just hearing about how people get into science. I thought it was great when you presented the thing, and I thought, oh gee, I'd like to do that, but I'm not an academic. You take PhD students too. Yeah. Awesome. So I honestly love talking about what I'm doing. A lot of academics, a lot of people are afraid to talk to people.
Yeah.
But I love nothing more than people, actually listening to like what I'm studying, because I love it and I love talking. So yeah.
Dude,
thank you.
No, my pleasure. Yeah, that's the thing. I think people don't understand, like, doing a PhD, you have to love what you're doing. Well, most people. Yeah. And so, like, I was at a party the other day, and my friend was asking me, she's like, do you get sick of people asking you about science shit? I'm like, no, man. Like, you don't understand. This is like my cocaine.
This is why I live. Yeah.
Ask me more questions. Oh, yeah.
I can keep going. Yeah, I go to parties and I just tell people about my PhD. That's how I go to parties nowadays. It's great.
That's how I make friends.
Well, yeah, maybe. That's how I annoy my friend. No.
Thank you, Gareth. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.